Hello, welcome to the fall semester. This is Charlie Sparks. I'm a full professor and the chair of the accounting program here at UAF. I've been actually an alumni, just a little history about myself. I'm an alumni of the program. I attended UAF right out of high school and earned my accounting degree in the early 80s. I went to Anchorage and worked for a large international accounting firm there for several years, and then when I left, I went to Alaska Permanent Fund, where I was the senior accountant there for 2 years, and left for graduate school to earn my master's and PhD at the University of Iowa in late 1988. And when I finished that, I returned to UAF and have been on faculty ever since then. I'm looking forward to this semester. It's kind of a challenge for me. We're offering all of my classes this year, the senior level classes, in a kind of a dual format where it's face-to-face as well as online. Encourage students to try both or see what works best for them in their schedule. I will have all our lectures, physical lectures, recorded, as well as some time available to work individually with students or groups of students using Zoom, a video conferencing software. We really want to accommodate all student needs here. So if you've had a chance to look at Blackboard, you see that I've begun reorganizing the traditional materials that I use for teaching all my classes, but from kind of a face-to-face base where there's a lot of resources posted there to more of a online with here's week 1, here's week 2, and I hope to get that finished up by the end of next week. It'll follow the course syllabi exactly, and so you can always look at that to see where you should be. Everything will be available on Blackboard, all the course resources, assignments, supplemental readings, templates for projects, whatever. I'm also going to add discussion forums. That's something that I haven't used for a while, but for our online students, it's designed to replicate the discussion experience that occurs in face-to-face class settings. So we'll use those from time to time, especially in some of the material that's a little bit maybe more difficult to understand master the concepts there. And so with that, just talk briefly about overview of auditing. So if you took the financial audit course in the spring semester, you've already got the understanding of what auditing is about, and it's basically different than all the accounting classes you've taken today that really address either financial accounting or managerial accounting. Here, auditing is kind of a separate discipline where you have to have that foundation knowledge of how the accounting should be done and performed, and auditing really is a special skill set where you go in and look at the underlying accounting records and the methods, the internal control systems, to see that the work was done. In other words, that the financial statements and other reports are reliable and they've been performed in accordance with accounting standards, whether they're GAAP, the FASB, or international standards, whatever. And also in this class, the context is more on the adherence to internal controls. We look in this internally within a firm instead of our reports being given to outsiders or internal users, and so our work focuses on those internal aspects. So we need to have we have to have an understanding of risk, and that's where we're kind of, after we get through the initial chapter on kind of what auditing is basically about, we'll get into governance issues, and internal auditors serve internal stakeholders, primarily the audit committee, because it's a complex, large organization. Board members don't have the time, maybe not the expertise to go in and evaluate the accounting shop, and so on the reports they generate. So that's our role. We're specialized staff that work within the firm to align interests between management and external stakeholders represented by the board of directors. So auditing in an internal audit context and governmental is really focused on evaluation of risks and the internal controls that are put in place to address those risks. And that's really the key difference between this audit class and the spring financial audit class. So if this is your first auditing class, you'll struggle a little bit to kind of understand the conceptual nature and the focus of auditing, what auditing is. If you took the financial class in the spring, you already know the conceptual foundations for auditing. Here we're just going to have a different focus where we're going to be looking primarily, at internal controls, evaluation of those controls in light of the risks that we have identified. And so it'll be a broader look than we did in the spring financial course. So that's kind of an overview of auditing, and I provided a more detailed description in the course syllabi. Let me add that we'll have weekly assignments that progress through the textbook. So be sure and get the textbook. It's published by the Internal Audit Association, and so it's not a commercial produced textbook like by Wiley or McGraw-Hill. It's written by practitioners, actual practitioners, for the Institute of Internal Auditing. It's revised, every 3 or 4 years when they feel the need there, but it's highly relevant. We'll cover a chapter a week, basically, and then I'll augment that with outside readings in particular areas. We're going to work on, we're going to go through governmental audit standards. Towards the end of the last half of the semester, we'll start introducing that material after we've got the conceptual foundation, and we'll see how the governmental is different than internal auditing. It has a lot of similarities, and it happens to be a major practice in Alaska, which is why we need to spend some time on that. And specifically, we're going to complete a few cases during this semester, and one of them will relate to that. So we'll have a weekly schedule starting with week 1 through week 14. There'll be several data projects, as I mentioned just previously here. One will be a tutorial. We have to develop proficiency with a software program that is introduced in the textbook and is supported by the Institute. It's called ACL. There's a nice structured tutorial that I'll have you go through, and when you complete it, you'll get a certificate that you'll upload for me. But you'll work on that independently outside of the face-to-face class. And this will give you some kind of basics on that software tool, working with the interface, capabilities. The best way to describe ACL and the related program IDEA is that it's kind of a combination of Access and Excel. So you've got spreadsheet capabilities and database capabilities where you're able to work with large data sets and filter and mine those. And so that's really our focus there. And after we complete that tutorial, we have a payroll case that we'll work through, and then finally we'll do a governmental planning exercise where you kind of apply your knowledge of federal audit standards to a case that is actually I adapted from a real organization here in Alaska. Just one final note on our exams. So if you're not coming to the face-to-face classes or not able to come to the face-to-face classes, you will need to line up a proctor, and e-learning has provide those services, and so you'll have to register with them. And I will provide those exams to e-learning, and so if you're going to take the exams that way, you'll be able to sign up and schedule those independently of the class. If you're going to be able to come to the class, there'll be an exam given on a particular class day and class meeting day, and we'll take the exam in the face-to-face format. And so anyway, I'll post our first discussion board is just kind of questions, general questions about the class, and then other students can share the questions and my responses if you have any. All right. Well, what a summer with all the budget upheaval, but I'm glad it was all my colleagues here at UAF and system-wide are happy that it was resolved favorably, and looking forward to the semester ahead and working with everybody and exploring new areas. So thank you.